Hey guys, welcome to the channel. So today I have a showdown of all time for you. It is the Mittens 1-rated chess.com bot versus the play Magnus Bot. And Magnus is a super strong player, so there's a good chance his bot is going to be able to give Mittens a bit of a run for its money. So let's have a look at the game. So Magnus starts with c4, which is a great way to play against bots. It's very positional. Bots don't really like positions. Okay, now let's see how Mittens responds. e5. And basically we have this reverse Sicilian position in the English. So it's like black and white have like swapped around their usual setups in the Sicilian. Both the bots seem to like to play that a3 move just to shut down the knights, and Magnus tries to strike in the center and build up a little bit of a center, which looks good. The only problem with that is he's basically like offering his c4 pawn for the b7 pawn, which I don't really understand that. And then he also has this problem where he has to get his king out of the center, so he does that. And then rather than capture, well, obviously Mittens couldn't capture now because it's defended by the queen, but we have these trades of pawns, and Magnus has an isolated pawn, which he solves by creating a hanging pawn, which is probably just as bad. So Mittens is definitely doing better structurally than Magnus at the moment. We have this trade of bishops here, so Mittens has dark square weaknesses now, and Magnus is a little bit weaker on the light squares. And Mittens basically just like piles up on this pawn, putting a lot of pressure on that pawn. So Magnus's pieces don't have very much mobility, and Mittens tries to take advantage of that by just trying to take as much space as it can and just like control as many squares as it can as well. So Stockfish thinks Mittens made a little bit of a mistake there that allows Magnus to equalize. And then we have some trades. But Magnus is slowly equalizing here. It's not quite as dire because there's no real way for Mittens to break through right now. And Magnus actually wins one of Mittens' pawns, but Mittens wins it straight back. And start to see a lot of checks. This is an interesting move. The sort of trap here is that if Mittens takes en passant, Magnus is going to capture that pawn with check. And then I believe that pawn is just going to roll down the board, and Magnus can actually stop Mittens from promoting on the other side of the board. So that's a good move. So Mittens actually just has to do nothing there. Just allow that pass pawn to be created. So Magnus is like, I'm going to check you and start trying to roll my pawns down the board. So this pass pawn is actually pretty clutch for Magnus. It's rather helpful. And Mittens is just giving a ton of checks because even though it's a drawn position, the bots don't really like drawing. So basically what they'll do is they'll just do the second best move other than drawing, which can lead to some weird kind of blunders sometimes. And heaps and heaps of checks. None of the moves are repeated though because neither side wants to draw, and suddenly, look at Magnus's pawn, it's rolling right down the board. And this is a bit of a mistake. Let's have a look at the move tree and see what happens. So basically Magnus takes the opportunity to like roll his king down the board, and then like even though he's keep getting put in check constantly, it can actually greedily gobble up one of those pawns. And have a look at this. Mittens can't trade queens there because that pawn's going to promote, and Mittens' own pawn is going to be too slow. But actually, Magnus Bot didn't actually find that continuation, so we just continue on. Like, it's similar continuation, but the Magnus Bot doesn't actually end up taking the pawn that time. Mittens tries to roll its pawn instead, But this is actually too late because look at Magnus's pawn. It's going to promote. But for some reason, Magnus doesn't promote immediately and allows Mittens to position its king in a slightly better square. And that kind of makes all the difference. Because now, Mittens actually has time to roll its pawns down the board after all these checks. After all these checks, and Mittens has another queen now, so huge comeback from Mittens. Magnus does get this check here. Magnus is like, I'm a trade. And then it looks like Magnus is still on top. Does he have time to get there? He does, but then Mittens blocks his king in, preventing that pawn from pushing. And this is the problem when you have a passed wing pawn. It is easier for the opposition king to defend, and the game ends in a draw. Really interesting game. Mittens was definitely on top positionally at the start, but then just made sort of that weird blunder, and Magnus just didn't capitalize on that blunder. And the other weird thing about this game is look at the evaluation from Stockfish. Stockfish is trying to say that the Mittens bot only performed at a 1650 and Magnus performed at a 1600. That makes minimal sense to me. How can a 95% accuracy game be that rating? And it's like, yeah, this was like incredibly precise, but no, it's like 1600. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I wouldn't mind replaying this match in the future. I was really impressed with the chances Magnus Bot had, and I reckon on a good day, Magnus is fighting those moves, so definitely an interesting game there.